Hey, you, and welcome back to another episode of the Miss Michaela Mae Show. I'm your host, Miss Michaela Mae, here with my corgis, Tank and Willie. And today we are going to talk about the problem with the let them theory. And I just want to preface this by saying I love Mel Robbins and I loved the 5-second rule. And I think Mel Robbins has a gift of making like harder concepts into quick and easy, actionable steps. And there is some problems with the let them theory, and just like with everything, there are some problems with the let them theory, but there's also some positives with the let them theory. So I do want to talk about them both. But the reason I specifically wanted to highlight the problems with the let them theory is if you've been on a healing journey and working on healing emotional trauma, childhood trauma, sexual abuse trauma for any length of time, if you are using the let them theory in a very specific way, it is going to contribute to numbness and bypassing your emotions. Because if we have emotions bubbling up and we just are avoiding them, suppressing them, and shoving them down and saying, let them, let them, let them, we're doing the same thing that we're actually we're trying to heal from. We're just doing it in a different way in the name of personal development. So I'm going to extrapolate on that. But the first thing that I want to say, the positives about the let them theory is there is a beauty and a freedom in realizing that other people's actions don't have anything to do with you. Like there might be something in there that has something to do with you, but if someone does something, it's more likely about whatever they have going on in their own world, then it doesn't actually mean anything about you as a person. So when someone doesn't invite you out for dinner, it doesn't mean that you are invaluable. It doesn't mean that you're not special. You may feel that way, and that needs to be addressed, and that's why we don't want to bypass it, but it actually means like they're just in their own little bubble doing their own thing, and like that's okay. And so those are the positives about it, is really starting to think like their actions don't have anything to do with me. It doesn't mean anything about me. Someone could invite me or not invite me. I'm still special. I'm still valuable. Like I think that's the power when the let them theory is used in a certain way. I believe that is the power of the let them theory. The problem with it, like I mentioned a little bit ago, is it is, and what I see most people using it for online is another form of emotional avoidance and another form of numbness. So anything when we have like, I want you to think of your emotions as like boiling in a pot. I want you to think like if those emotions are boiling in a pot and they need to be addressed, they're coming up to the surface so that you can see and sort through them out. So just imagine like similar to, if you haven't watched Inside Out, I do really recommend it because it actually can put visual cues and it's actually very accurate to how our emotions actually work. But if you imagine all those little bubbles coming up and each one of those bubbles holds an emotion, the let them theory is essentially turning off the heat, putting the lid back on the pot, putting it on the back burner and saying like it doesn't exist, which if you're listening to this video is what you've probably been taught to do your entire life. And the reason that addressing those emotions is so important is because those emotions are signals. And so when we're avoiding those signals, we're not getting the message and the meaning that we need to get from those emotions. And so the way I see this, and the biggest problem with it, with the let them theory, is it's another form of avoidance. And I think it like, one of the questions I always come back and ask myself, like, what feels good is not all it was what is always good, and what is good doesn't always feel good. And sometimes those things align, but sometimes we really have to discern and decide like, okay, this feels good, but is it good? It feels good short term, but is it good long term? Or this actually doesn't feel good short term, but is it going to be good long term? And really like sit with those two things. And that's where I think the let them theory makes us feel good in the moment. Like, yeah, let them, fuck them, screw them. But then we're avoiding this part in us that says, I'm actually hurt. I'm actually upset. I actually don't feel valuable. And maybe their actions don't make that mean, but actually this is just a reflection of the fact that I don't feel valuable and I do need to address that. And so again, I just wanted to make this like short little Monday episode. And what I want to leave you with is like, what are you avoiding that you actually need to address? What feelings are you suppressing? Like, let's say if you're here, I'm assuming you've heard of the let them theory. So what have you been saying let them that you actually need to address them? Meaning, what emotions do you need to address? So you didn't get invited. What feelings does that invoke for you? And then go journal on them. Like, what does that feeling have to say? And then once you get the expression of that emotion all the way out, ask yourself, like, is it true? Could something else be true? And what do I want to believe instead? Like, what do I actually want to believe myself? And then the cool thing is when we start to shift how we see ourselves, the way other people treat us will change. And so again, I also think the let them theory is bypassing, like, because when we listen to these emotions, there's really beautiful messages. So when we say let them, let them, let them, not only are we bypassing these emotions in the first place, but we're also not getting these beautiful messages that are actually underneath this trigger, because we're, again, avoiding going around, jumping over the trigger instead of addressing it and getting the teachings that we need within that trigger. So that is all I have for today's episode of the Miss Michaela Mae Show. I'm your host, Miss Michaela Mae. If you found this quick little Monday insight episode valuable, I would be so thankful if you would rate, review, and subscribe to the show. And if you feel so called to review the show, would you please let me know what you enjoyed most and what you would like to hear more of? Until next time, I'm your host, Miss Michaela Mae, here with my corgis, Tank and Willie, and we will see you next time.